supposed to enforce that entire thing. Like we've
A
got
handful?
There's just a handful. We have the Holton border sector, which is up on like the right, the right corner of Maine, if you're looking at a map. And there's a station there, and they have the sector. But then there are agents stationed in different places throughout the state of Maine, where if there's anything that falls within the domain of CBP that they can get to in an hour drive, that's their territory. And there's actually I don't know if it was this specific case, the one we just referenced in Fort Fairfield, but there was another one I heard about where there's a similar incidence of Chinese guys just walking across the border from Canada, and they later get pulled over, and the driver had his phone still on the dash with his Google Maps route in it, and it was still saved from New York or Massachusetts. I think it was Boston, but you could see how he'd driven up from Massachusetts and gone to ding, 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 all these different locations in Maine, and then up to the border.
Totally like he knew what he was doing almost.
We should probably save that, or at least someone told him where to go.
Have you ever seen my friend Kat Szulc's reporting at all?
Name sounds familiar.
You've probably seen her around. She's young, but she's like on the ground in Mexico, has been like reporting on the cartels, but she's originally from Canada.
Okay.
So then she started, naturally she's going to track stories back to where she's from as well, cares a lot about that. She was talking, and she wasn't the only one, but she's talking about how easy the cartel lines were going in just with like the fentanyl stuff and the things that we've talked about before into Canada and setting up literal plants there. And she got laughed out of the place like a year ago talking about that. And then 6 months later, it's like, oh, yep, we found some. And, that's another thing. She's like, obviously, we talk about the Mexico border all the time, righteously so. But you got a whole thousands of fucking miles border with Canada up there. And if you don't think different groups like this, in your case, you're referring more towards the triads and stuff like that. But any surreptitious group that wants to do something bad on either side of those borders isn't using that. You're fucking crazy.
Anybody who doesn't want to check in at the border.
Yep.
I mean, we have normalized relationships with Canada. Anyone
for
coming
now.
For now, right? Governor Trudeau. Anyone who wants to cross for legitimate reasons, you go through a port of entry. I cross into Canada all the time, and it's as simple as paying a toll. It's like crossing from New York to New Jersey. It's easy.
You just take a passport.
Yeah,
and
you just stop there. The guy looks at your passport and he's like, "Thank you, sorry." Wow. But anyone who is walking across the border or trying to skirt your points of entry, they're doing so for a reason.
Yes.
And it's not a good one. There's no innocent reasons for just walking across the border to get into a getaway car. There's no innocent reasons for crossing between ports of entry.
There's not.
And you're right that the Maine-Canada border hasn't gotten enough attention. I think that's changing. I think that with the crackdown on the southern border, like customers, there's still demand for drugs, guns, and human trafficking victims in America, unfortunately. Yeah. That's just going to be rerouted through the Canadian border. Yes. It's like, trying to squeeze a balloon. The pressure is going to go somewhere. And so as the Mexican border is harder for it to come through, it's going to come through the Canadian border, through marine ports of entry. It's the other thing people don't think about with Maine is our coastline with all the inlets is longer than California's. And on the eastern...
Wait, really?
Yeah, if you count all the, the sounds and bays and the little innies and outies, it's longer than California's. And Border Patrol has their area of enforcement is from the border 100 miles in. It's basically the entire populated state of Maine. Mm-hmm. So you go from the Canadian border 100 miles in, but also from the marine border 100 miles in.
Right.
That's their enforcement territory. And you've got just a handful of agents in Maine that are supposed to enforce that entire thing. Like we've got
a handful?
There's just a handful. We have the Holton border sector, which is up on like the right, the right corner of Maine, if you're looking at a map, and there's a station there and they have the sector, but then there are agents stationed in different places throughout the state of Maine, where if there's anything that falls within the domain of CBP that they can get to in an hour drive, that's their territory. And they're like wolves, man. They don't have overlapping territory. It's very sparse. But I've actually gone out in Border Patrol boats just doing ride-alongs with some of these guys, and it's thinly covered. And I haven't personally, seen or encountered this out in Washington County, Maine, but I've heard a lot of stories about smuggling with boats and, urchin divers hollowing out their oxygen tanks so that they can stuff heroin in it. And in the early days, it was like they'd bring it up from New Jersey, actually. They'd bring it up.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, they'd take an urchin boat from down east Maine, and it's like I don't know, it's some crazy length of a trip. It's like 15 hours boat ride down, and put the heroin in those tanks and upright the tanks, and no one ever searches the tanks. No one ever looks twice. Of course, he's an urchin diver. Why wouldn't he have a bunch of oxygen tanks on his boat? And that was how heroin was getting into down east Maine for a long time. Huge quantities of heroin. But obviously the fentanyl came in, it was like prescription opioids, then the heroin, and then the fentanyl. And now we're coming away from the fentanyl a little bit, but
then you're finding some other dark shit that we're going to talk about.
Yes. More dark shit. But anyways, that was just to say the marine smuggling is also a big issue, especially on the human trafficking side. Yeah.
Well, the human trafficking, let's put a pin in that, because there's a lot there. And like I said, there's like 10 different things we can go to right there. But just from the start, so that people understand you if they haven't seen you, like on Sean's show and some of the other shows you've done, like, how did you even get into reporting on this stuff? I mean, you were working at Barstool Sports like 3 years ago. What happened to get you to report on international Chinese drug smuggling rings?
It's a good question. Where did things go wrong? Well, I was the producer on the Kirk Minahan show for Barstool Sports, and I was his producer for his comedy show. But Kirk, I think this was near the end of 2021, decided that he wanted to do a cold case podcast and asked me if I wanted to be the producer for that as well. And I was like, yeah, of course. And so we started looking into the disappearance of a 15-year-old girl named Jennifer Fey, who went missing in Brockton, Massachusetts in 1989. And I kind of got a taste of investigative journalism by following Kirk around and kind of seeing how you would make a eight episode cold case podcast. And this particular case ended up being more than just, we're going to pull up the Wikipedia page and we're going to read about, this, dusty old case, because that wasn't Kirk's style. He wanted to go like do actual news. Like his model of success for that podcast was, we're going to find the body, we're going to find the murderer, and we're going to get them locked up. Like, we're not just like doing a podcast to entertain people. Like, we're out here trying to solve a crime. And so that led to us, we got a lead on this creepy guy who was doing coke with Jennifer the night she went missing, was probably the last one to see her alive, probably killed her. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but probably.
Allegedly.
Allegedly probably killed her.
Allegedly. We don't know.
Definitely. Was charged. Multiple murders. But so we ended up chasing this guy around South Carolina in the middle of COVID restrictions. It was crazy to go from Massachusetts, where everyone's like masked up and stay away from me. And we're down in like outside of Clemson.
You're like spit and chew out.
Oh, yeah. Oh, teeth. There's people are smoking so much meth down there. That's what Kirk always asked. He was like, if one of these guys got COVID, how would they know? Which was a legitimate question. But so like running around doing that, believe it or not, was a fun experience. It was rewarding to do a long form podcast, because I'd been used to talk radio or daily podcast episodes where it's like, it's more topical. It's not like we're going to put a lot of time into this 1 hour of content or 8 hours of content, and we're going to release these episodes. So I really enjoyed that. And so I was kind of burnt out after that. Ended up getting a camper van, driving around with my wife just for a year, just traveling the country, trying to figure out what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, and settled on starting a media outlet in the state of Maine. Maine's like a blue purple state, and it's got a media that's pretty much just dominated by progressives, kind of liberals who don't even know that they're liberals. Really, they don't know that they're like in this, that they're reporting on things and writing about things in a way that just like doesn't appeal to half of the state and doesn't align with what the half of the state is interested in terms of values. Okay. It's kind of bifurcated in that.
More commentary rather than journalism, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, that's
journalism.
Yes, yeah. Or they think it's just like they're writing about something. It's a conversation amongst people on the left as opposed to of the entire state, or something that's true investigative journalism. They're more they think their job is to like republish statements from the government, or referee a fight between Republicans and Democrats, as opposed to finding out what's actually going on, or finding things that the government doesn't want you to know about. So we wanted to shake things up a little bit. And yes, I mean, I'm conservative. I wasn't going to like pretend to be neutral down the middle. So we are the conservative outlet in the state of Maine, but we really started as a digital media startup. And we use some of the things that I learned at Barstool, some of the, new media platforms, new media techniques, to create an outlet that embraced video, storytelling, multimedia, a kind of brash, not trying to be like stuffy and have, an issue that went out in the morning. And when the first story about the Chinese organized crime in Maine broke, I was like, oh man, we got to dig into this.
Yeah.
Like, this is sensational. Like, there's an organized crime ring with 270 locations in Maine. Like, we got to find out if this is true or not. And we got to go find these places, and we got to talk to these people, and we got to figure out who owns these properties. And we got to dig into this. Like, what's
you weren't
the
a little
here?
Bit afraid?
No, not at first. No, not at first. Definitely went through like a period of immense fear, but then kind of came out the other end of that. But at first I was like, geez, I don't know. Are there powerful people leaking this story just to get us angry at China so that people will support a defense budget? Or, are people playing games here? What's the truth here? So that's what we set out to figure out, is if there's any substance to this claim from a anonymously leaked CBP memo that there's 270 Chinese marijuana grows in Maine controlled by Chinese organized crime, and they're using the profit from that to subsidize fentanyl trafficking and human trafficking and all kinds of other activities.
Just let it go.
The other outlets, all of the other outlets made that decision. I guess they saw it and they were like, huh. That's interesting. Nothing to see here, folks.
You know what the problem is, Steve? They're looking at it thinking, all right, well, eventually, if we're going to do a big story, we want it to go to Hollywood. And they look at Hollywood and they go, oh, wait, we got to be able to sell it to China. I guess we can't cover the China story.
I don't even think they're thinking that far. I think you give them,
but it's kind of funny.
It's true. You're giving them maybe a little bit too much credit. I don't think these guys have ever thought about ever.
Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.